Hey book fighters, it's Wednesday, it's Sarah! See? This does not work well. I've just finished reading Paper Towns by John Green. Again. So yeah. When I was reading this, I scheduled this specifically to read this week, so that would be my last book, Book Fighters, and also be reading it right before I move. So the things that always stand out to me when I read Paper Towns are not the things that people usually talk about. So, thought what I'd do, since it's not actually it's not actually Wednesday. It's actually 4 in the morning on, not Wednesday. So, since I have to make this video shorter than I thought, because it has to have more stuff at the end, with the top 5 at the end, that I didn't know about until just recently. Figure what I do. I went through and I found the 2 quotes, and I'm just gonna read those 2 things that stand out to me the most. And then I'm going to go into my top 5 that's not actually top 5, but actually a top 5 and then another top 5. But just edit it so it's short. Yeah, okay, I have bookmarks in here. Why can't I find them? By the way, these are both extremely spoilery quotes, so if you haven't read the book, yeah. This is from page 228. My locker was an unadulterated crap hole, half trash can, half book storage. Her locker had been neatly stacked with textbooks when Lacey opened it, I remembered, as if she intended to school the next day. I pulled a garbage can over to the bank of lockers and opened mine up. I began pulling off a picture of Radar in bed and me goofing off. I put it inside my backpack and then started the disgusting process of picking through a year's worth of accumulated filth. Gum wrapped in scraps of notebook paper, pens out of ink, greasy napkins, and scraping it all into the garbage. All along I kept thinking, I will never do this again, I will never be here again, this will never be my locker again. Radar and I will never write notes in calculus again, I will never see Margot across the hall again. This was the first time in my life that so many things would never happen again. And finally, it was too much. I could not talk myself down from the feeling became unbearable. I reached in the deep recesses of my locker. I pulled everything, photographs and notes and books, into the trash can. I left the locker open and walked away. As I walked past the band room, I could hear through the walls the muffled sounds of pomp and circumstance. I kept walking. It was hot outside, but not as hot as usual. It was bearable. There were sidewalks most of the way home, I thought, so I kept walking. As paralyzing and upsetting as all the never-agains were, the final leaving felt perfect, pure, the most still possible form of liberation. Everything that mattered except one lousy picture was in the trash, but it felt so great. I started jogging, wanting to put even more distance between myself and school. It is so hard to leave until you leave, and that is the easiest goddamn thing in the world. As I ran, I felt myself for the first time becoming Margot. I knew she's not in Orlando, she's not in Florida. Leaving feels too good once you leave. If I'd been in a car and not on foot, I might have kept going too. She was gone and not coming back, graduation or anything else. I felt sure of that now. I leave, and the leaving is so exhilarating, I know I can never go back. But then what? Do I just keep leaving places and leaving them, tramping a perpetual journey? This is from page 295. My heart has been fluttering around my chest for so long now that this variety of intoxication almost seems sustainable. But only almost. Margot, if you can just come home for the summer. My parents said you can live with us. You can get a job and an apartment for the summer, and then school will start and you'll never have to live with your parents again. It's not just them. I'd get sucked right back in, she says. And I'd never get out. It's not just the gossip and the parties and all that crap, but the whole allure of the life rightly lived. College and job and husband and babies and all that bullshit. The thing is that I do believe in college and jobs and maybe even babies one day. I believe in the future. Maybe it's a character flaw, but for me it's a congenital one. But college expands your opportunities, I say finally. It doesn't limit them. She smirks. Thank you, college counselor Jacobson, she says, and then changes the subject. This is from page 296. I nod. I understand this. I imagine it is hard to go back once you felt the continents in your palm. But I still try one more time. But what about after the summer? What about college? What about the rest of your life? She shrugged. What about it? Aren't you worried about, forever? Forever is composed of now, she says. I have nothing to say to that. I'm just chewing through it when Margot says, Emily Dickinson. Like I said, I've been doing a lot of reading. I think the future deserves our faith, but it's hard to argue with Emily Dickinson. Margot stands up, slings her backpack over one shoulder, and reaches her hand down for me. Let's take a walk. As we're walking outside, Margot asks for my phone. I'm doing the top 5 a little bit differently. I reread a lot of books this past year, so I didn't really feel like it was fair to the new books or fair to the reread books to put them together in the same category. Because, I mean, A Swiftly Tilting Planet is my absolute favorite book of all time, and I reread it this year. And, yeah. So, I can't really compare anything to that. So I'm going to put them separate into new books and rereads, and I'm going to start with the new books. Number 5 on my new books is Till We Have Faces by C.S. Lewis. Number 4 is the book that I won't hold up, The Complete Paintings of Vincent van Gogh. Number 3, I don't actually have with me. It's somewhere lost in the stuff that's getting packed. But Fantasties by George MacDonald. Number 2, I actually couldn't decide. I have a tie for number 2. I'm terrible at making decisions. I'm horrible at making top whatever lists. So, yeah, hence my top 5 that isn't a top 5 or 2 top 5s or anything like that at all. Number 4 is a tie between Peter Pan and Good Omens. Number 1 book of the new books category is Speak. I really love this book. And I've forgotten a lot of the new books that I've read this semester for this project, and even the ones that are on my top list, I don't remember details of. Like, I have no idea what happens in this book at all, or what happens in Fantasties. I just know they're really good. But Speak, I remember very clearly. I remember absolutely everything about it, pretty much. Yeah. Okay, so top 5 for the rereads is going to be a tiny bit one-sided. These are really a lot harder for me to rank because a lot of these are some of my absolute favorite books that I hadn't read in a while. And so these aren't quite as ranked as the other ones were. Yeah, so I'm going to do sort of like Dan did and just talk about series with these. So, again, these top 5, except for the number 1, aren't really in any order. So, Harry Potter, because, like Katie was saying in her last video, the reread value of them is amazing, and I think it's, even though the experience is vastly different when you're rereading than when you're reading it for the first time, like it pretty much is with any book, they're definitely books that have incredible reread value, and I get so much more out of them rereading them than before. Next book on my list is Voyage of the Dawn Treader. Next on the list, I'm putting these two together. I'm in the Starfish at an Acceptable Time by Madeline L'Engle behind me. So Ring of Endless Light is going in this group. Next is going to be, this is my number 2. These are sort of in order. Paper Towns. My number 1 reread is my number 1 book of ever, A Swiftly Tilting Planet by Madeline L'Engle, which I know I never actually really talked about the way I want to, because basically for me to talk about this book could be like weeks. I could spend weeks talking about this book. So now this is actually Wednesday night, and it's 10:15, and I wasn't gonna record this part at the end. I was just gonna end the video with my top 10, 5, twice, whatever thing, and be done, because I'm moving and I don't really have a lot of time. So yeah, and this video has been recorded over a bunch of days, and was 2 and is now 1, and went through a lot of different intentions on how it was gonna be, and then I finally, just a couple minutes ago, watched Lauren's video, and I was flipping through Paper Towns again and editing the first part of the video, and I knew I had to record this part at the end. So yeah, I'm also not gonna go through and say stuff about each of you, because that would also take too long, and yeah. So, yeah. I went to the grocery store about 2 or 3 hours ago, and it was as I was in the middle of editing and also packing and cleaning and doing all kinds of other stuff, and Kalinda's gonna be here in 2-ish and some hours, and we're gonna go around San Francisco, and it'll be her first time in San Francisco and my last for who knows how long, if I'm ever back here again. And so I was thinking about Paper Towns and all the leaving, and then leaving San Francisco and Book Fighters ending, and in a way leaving that, even though we'll obviously all still be in contact with each other, and yeah. And the thing, when I'm reading, every time I read or think about or see anything about Paper Towns, the thing that really always comes to mind is how much, for all her flaws and mishandling of things, I want to be Margot. I want to be able to just leave and not constantly worry about consequences, to do what I feel I need to do, and be able to do things for myself, and not always be worrying about, oh, what's going to happen tomorrow, what's going to happen in 2 years or 5 years, or how am I going to do this or that, and just be able to just live. And I can't, but that's who I want to be. And that also made me think of how they both Margot and Q experience leaving, and they experience it in very different ways, but yet sort of the same. And how they both were wrong about what they thought leaving would be like. For Margot, she thought she'd be completely free, and then she realized that she couldn't just completely cut off contact. And for Q, he thought it would be hard, and then it turned out to be the easiest thing ever once the actual leaving happened. And obviously, I'm still in my apartment. I still have far too much to pack and go through in the next couple hours. But they're both wrong and they're both right, and leaving is not a bad thing. It can be a good thing, it can be a neutral thing, but it's not always necessarily a bad thing. It can be, but in many ways leaving is good, even if you like the place you're leaving. And at the same time, leaving doesn't have to be complete. It doesn't have to be total. And a little over a year ago, some random, I thought then 17-year-old British guy that I barely knew sent me an email with terrible grammar, and I don't know if you were trying to be Margot or what, even though you hadn't read Paper Towns at that point, but weird capitalization. And for some reason, I decided, despite the fact that everything down when you first suggested the idea in the original couple videos, I was just like, that would be awesome, but there's no way I could do it. And yet for some reason I decided to go and do it, and I have no idea why. And I've had a lot of difficulty with book fighters, and because of book fighters, and it's added a lot of extra stress, and I don't remember most of the things I've read. And it's been a source of a lot of frustration, but I don't regret doing it at all. And it made what was a pretty, in many ways, difficult year, even though it contributed kind of a lot to that difficulty, it made it bearable. So, yeah. Katie, I'll see you tomorrow.